Hi, thank you so
Goatlandia
much.
QA.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Can you guys all see me? Yep, good. Okay. My name is Deborah, as Justin said, and thank you for the introduction, Justin. I'm the founder and executive director of Goatlandia. And this handsome fellow on my lap is Diego. He is one of the numerous male goats that we've rescued from the dairy industry. And I'll definitely talk more about that. But yeah, I thought you all would enjoy seeing one of the souls that we have saved. So he's a little squirrely, so I'm gonna let him down and start talking. All right. So welcome everyone here. Thank you for participating. Thank you, Hope, for inviting me. I'm truly honored to be on a panel with so many amazing souls and animal advocates. And yeah, I'm really very excited to be here. So first of all, just a little bit about Goatlandia. We've been a 501c3 nonprofit for 3.5 years now. As Justin said, it started as a passion. I just fell in love with goats, and ironically, I found out about goats through a restaurant that I had owned, and that we were buying cheese from a dairy up here in the area. So we did a staff field trip. I met goats, I fell in love, and you know, the rest is history, as they say. Subsequently, after moving up here, I saw a video on Facebook and became vegan overnight. And then that opened up this whole new world of compassion and health and environmentalism for me. And that led to rescuing animals and led to where we are today. So today I kind of want to share some stories of the animals that we've rescued, and also speak about what my perspective and our volunteers team perspective, what we're hearing from people that come to visit the sanctuary. And it's very interesting. Most of the animals that we rescue and we work with are from dairies, male goats like Diego and his half brother, countless others who are, discarded in the dairy operation. So that's kind of our focus, and we see a lot of that. And what's really interesting is everybody kind of understands meat. They understand that animals get killed for meat. But what a lot of people don't understand, shockingly, is that the whole process of dairy is sometimes even more torturous. It's just continuous exploitation of female animals. All the males that are born into dairies get killed, or most of them. And I think it's just such an amazing opportunity for us as sanctuary folks to educate people. We often get people who want to come to the sanctuary with their kids and they want to pet goats, and there's this whole experience of like, we just want to see the animals and be around the animals. But and that we provide that, but certainly as an education center and as a vegan organization committed to animal welfare, we also include education about animal agriculture in everything that we do. So they come to pet the goats, but they definitely hear the truth behind, why these goats are here, why they were saved, why they were going to be slaughtered. And another thing that's interesting that I've encountered is, now that we've been around, we're still fairly new, but we've been around a while. Oftentimes what's happening is employees that work for dairies are feeling bad about what they're seeing happen. And they're coming to us and saying, hey, can you help us save these baby boy goats? So it's a really interesting example of the awakening of consciousness in people that are in the agriculture business. And as hard as it is to maintain a healthy relationship with them and listen to the stories. I had one dairy owner tell me that she raises the boys to be a couple months old and kills them herself and eats them. And, in order to preserve that relationship and be able to rescue these animals, I have to kind of smile and nod. And at the end of the day, I'm doing what's good for the animal. But yeah, it's really interesting. I find it fascinating that employees within the dairy industry are coming to us to help rescue animals that they don't want to see killed. So it's pretty fascinating. Let's see, what else? Yeah, so a lot of people ask me, a lot of people that come to the sanctuary ask me, what do you think is worse, meat or dairy? I think they're both horrible. But again, if you compare the life of the animal prior to slaughter, dairy is certainly, in my opinion, they're both awful, but dairy is incredibly just horrible, because this repeated pregnancy and taking the baby away from the mother and killing all the boy babies. If you told a story and put that in human terms, it would be a punishable, incredible offense. And again, that's a story that we get to tell people that come here that aren't aware. And, a lot of people still think cows make milk because they're cows. So that's a big part of what we communicate to the public on their visits here is that truth. And certainly we adjust our presentation to our audience and their tolerance levels, but it's something that we share with everyone that we can. And to speak to the humane hoax, I've been to certified dairies up here in the area, and it's very true. People think like, oh, I only eat humane meat, or I only buy from a certified humane dairy. I've been to certified humane dairies. I've seen the babies born. I've seen them taken away from their mothers. The mothers cry, the babies cry, and it's awful. I had a ranch hand that lived with me years ago before I was a sanctuary, and he actually worked at a dairy up here that I know. And he was a 21-year-old young kid, really nice guy. And he eventually had to leave his job there because he said, and this guy was not vegan. And he said, I had to leave because I couldn't stand taking babies away from mom. So I'm encouraged by the fact that I feel like down deep, all humans want to do the right thing. They don't like to see anyone suffer or be in pain, whether it's an animal or a human. So yeah, we're working hard every day to save animals and promote and educate people about the truth. But there are some really golden nuggets of awakening that we're seeing, and that's very, very encouraging. So what I'd like to do today is share a PowerPoint with you, and we'll see if I can get this done. I'm not very great at technological stuff, but I'm going to share a PowerPoint with you and share some stories of the animals that we've rescued. And also love to do a Q&A session. So please feel free to put those in the chat. And do you guys see, someone tell me if you just see everything, if you see my slideshow? Good, okay, great. So let's start. So this is Null. Null is a La Mancha. He has little tiny ears, but he's
actually, hey, can you hear me? Yeah. It needs to be on full, that.
There we go.
Okay. All right, wonderful, good job.
Thank you guys. I'm great at goat care, but I'm not very technologically inclined. So this is Null. He is a La Mancha, and he, as you can see, he has little tiny ears. He is born that way. He has not had his ears cut. But what's noticeable also is he doesn't have horns. So on the subject of humane treatment, it's an extremely common practice in dairy operations to do what's called disbudding. And that process includes cauterizing their skull when they're a couple days old so they don't grow horns. First of all, it's extremely cruel. It's done without anesthesia, but it's also a very delicate process, because if they hold on the cautering iron too long, they get brain damage and can die. If they don't hold it on long enough, their horns grow in twisted ways and can grow back into their skull. So the majority of the goats that we rescue, unfortunately, have been through this process because we've rescued them at a week or 2 weeks old. As soon as we found out about their situation, the animals that we rescue really young, we always tell the owners, please don't disbud them. They think we're crazy, but we make that request, and we do have a number of goats that still have their horns, so you'll meet some of them. But this is Null. He was rescued from a dairy. Again, male born in a dairy, would have been killed. He's with us still today. He's a very interesting guy. All of our goats have very distinct personalities, and he is one of our biggest pranksters. He's always a guest favorite, despite his really cantankerous attitude, but we really love him, and he's about 8 years old now. This is Joe with one of our volunteers. Again, we rescue a lot of boys from dairies, so as soon as we rescue them, we are tasked with the responsibility of feeding them since they are no longer with their mother. And on that note, as a quick aside, we've had the opportunity to raise animals bottle feeding that we've rescued from dairies, and we've also had situations where we've rescued adult goats and sheep that, unbeknownst to us, were pregnant. And then we'd have this baby born, or babies born. Most of the time they have two. And so we've had the experience of raising animals on bottle versus having moms raise their own animals. And I can tell you that the difference is astounding. Animals that are raised on their moms are healthier. They don't get diarrhea. They eat when they want. They grow faster. They're just, we've really been able to see the difference between the natural process and what nature intends versus what we're having to do. The babies that are bottle fed often get scours and diarrhea. They get sick more often because we're not even sure if they're getting colostrum when they're first born. So it's really apparent to us. It's like, wow, we really see the difference. Babies are meant to be raised by their moms. And yeah, we do the best we can with the bottle ones. But it's, it's 10 feedings a day and lots of effort, and we love doing it. But it definitely is more challenging than having them nurse on their mom. But this is Joe. Joe is a Nubian, and he's been adopted with his two friends, Jackson and Ella. And yeah, this little kid we rescued about a year ago. We adopted him out about 4 months ago. And he is happy and healthy and a lot bigger than you see in this picture. Total sweetheart. This next picture, Tucker and Isaac. This is an interesting story. So one of my board of directors used to be a vet at UC Davis. And she called me one day and said, I have this beautiful baby Oberhasli goat. This is the breed of these two, Oberhasli. And she said, the owner doesn't want him because he's male and he wanted to put him down, but he's healthy, he's beautiful, he's amazing. Will you take him? And I said, absolutely. So I contacted the owner, who was the owner of a hobby dairy and incidentally a retired vet from UC Davis. And I said, yeah, I'd love to adopt your baby boy goat. And he was kind of surprised as to why I would want to do that. And he said, well, he has a half brother. Will you take him too? And I said, sure, no problem. And then I said, will you please not disbud them? And because again, we think it's a cruel process and we don't believe in animal mutilation. And he says, well, I don't know why you would want to do that. You're putting yourself at danger. And anyway, we convinced him. So these two guys are now 2 years old. They're huge and sweet and loving and kind. And they have big long horns. They were the stars of our goat yoga when they were really young. But yeah, this is an example of how, two perfectly healthy boys would have just been slaughtered. And the only reason that Tucker, who's the one in the foreground, was pitched in his mom, he was turned around backwards. So the owner brought the doe, the mother, who was trying to deliver to UC Davis in an emergency. And another thing that's really interesting, these boys, we rescued them when they were, I think Isaac was 4 days old, Tucker was about a week and a half. And so they've been with us their whole life. And all they've ever really known is kindness. And all they've really known is us and all the visitors. They've met thousands of people. And we get visitors all the time that meet them and they comment, wow, they're so friendly, they're so nice. And they say that not only about Tucker and Isaac, but about a lot of our animals, whether they're pigs or chickens or goats or sheep. And it's really interesting. We get to respond to that by saying, yes, that's how animals react when they've only known kindness. So it's a beautiful opportunity for us to show people and for us to experience ourselves that this is what kindness looks like. This is, when you rescue an animal and you treat them with love and compassion and kindness, they have no reason to be aggressive. And it really makes an impact on people. So yeah, it's something we love doing, is showing people that. This is me and Tucker. You could see he's a little bit bigger there. He has some horns. And this was taken by the Press Democrat, a photographer, the Press Democrat, who talked about our sanctuary in an article. This is his brother, Isaac. And you could see Tucker in the background there. Again, this is them fully grown at Goatlandia. This is another picture of Tucker, and I think this was taken just 2 weeks ago by a wonderful volunteer that we have. And you can see how incredibly bonded they are. These two, they had the same father, 2 different mothers, but they've been together since their first day of life. So they hang out together all the time. They definitely have strong bonds. The important thing too that we see with animals is they really, just like we do, they pick their friends, they pick their alliances, they have their preferences in friends and food and where they sleep. And these two are together all the time. And, we see that with a lot of animals that we rescue and take in. And we always, if we have a pair or a trio that are bonded, we absolutely adopt them out together because, just like us, it would be heartbreaking to lose your best friend. So they're still at the Goatlandia here today, and they're always a favorite of visitors. This is Guy, and you could see again, he's a La Mancha without horns. He was rescued from a dairy. He was extra just because he's male and destined for slaughter. And this is him when he was a kid. He was about a year old here. So he's big and gorgeous, and he's about 7 years old. And I'd like to think he's smiling there, but I think he was chewing his cud. This is Ruby. Ruby is an Oberhasli doe, and this is an interesting situation. She was from a local dairy, and this is one of those cases that I talked about where the employee of the dairy felt bad about what she was seeing happen. She felt bad that that the owner was discarding these animals and slaughtering the males and eating them. And this particular goat, even though she's a female, they had bred her and she had a very difficult pregnancy. So they just didn't want to keep her and breed her. And the only reason that she's alive and with us today is because of this employee cared, basically. And she reached out to us and said, hey, will you help save this life? So we took her in. She was with us for about 2 months. And she made friends with some young boy goats that were rescued from being eaten. And she's since been adopted out. So another happy ending there. This is Eric. This is one of our newest rescues. He was rescued with Diego, who was the little kid on my lap earlier. We rescued 7 babies from one dairy, and we were able to rescue all the remaining males that they had. So, you know, we started out with 3, and then there was an opportunity to rescue 2 more. And then the lady called and said, I have 2 more. Do you want them? And I said, sure. So it feels really good to be able to save as many as we can. And definitely we're a small sanctuary. We're limited by space. Absolutely. We're only 2 acres, but you know, when we're able to save these lives, obviously we want to do that. And it felt great to know that we didn't leave anybody behind on this rescue. So we rescued 3 Saanens. This is Eric's breed, and 2 Oberhaslis, and you met Diego. So these boys are going to stay with us till they're about 6 months old, at which time we'll castrate them surgically with anesthesia and then make them available for adoption. Let's see. Oh, this is Rainy. So this picture is a little older than the others. So Rainy is a full-grown Saanen, and this is another interesting example of what happens in animal agriculture. Rainy belonged to a gentleman who lives up here who's a vet, but he also breeds goats, and he breeds this breed of goat, which is a Saanen. And Rainy, for some reason, can't have babies. So he basically called around a bunch of people, tried to find a home for her, was unsuccessful. So he called me because I had used him as a vet previously and said, yeah, I have this goat. She can't have babies, so I don't want her, which is, of course, extremely sad. And he said, I've asked everybody, if you don't take her, I'm going to put her down. So, of course, we said yes. And we rescued her. Gosh, it's probably been about 4 years now. And she's a fantastic addition to Goatlandia. She's one of our hiker goats. We go on hikes with people, and we go to parks, and we do an hour-long hike with a goat, and then we have lunch. And she's one of our star hikers. But as you see here, she's also a really friendly goat, as most of our goats are, but she comes with us to different events, speaking engagements, festivals, and things. So here she is at a speech we gave at the Sonoma Humane Society, and making friends, and the treats help. This is one of our goats, Poppy. Poppy has a really good story. So Poppy is not a dairy goat. She is a mini goat called a pygmy. And she came to us also through my board of director, who used to be a vet at UC Davis. So Poppy was born to a family, and the mother's an FFA teacher. And when she was born, she had a dislocated shoulder. They waited too long to take her to the vet. They waited 3 weeks. And by the time they took her to the vet, which happened to be UC Davis, they said, well, we can't fix her shoulder, so we'll just amputate her leg. And the owner, the lady who was the FFA teacher, said, well, I don't want to pay for that surgery. I don't want a 3-legged goat, just put her down. Which again, just shows you that, you know, FFA, dairy, meat, all the animal agriculture programs, they view these animals as objects and not as beings. And so fortunately, the vet on duty that day was on my board of directors, and she called and she said, you know, I have this little pygmy goat. I'm supposed to put her down. She's sedated on the table. There's something really special about her, and I think you guys should adopt her. So of course we said yes. And we paid for her surgery, which she did fine. Goats actually do really well on 3 legs. But the interesting thing that happened next, I found to be really illuminating. So we brought Poppy home, and she was just, she's pretty little, but she was even more little at this point. And we made a little film on Facebook about the story, how we rescued her from an FFA family. And we did not name the family at all, out of courtesy. But what happened next was really interesting. I got calls from the owner, the previous owner, and calls from FFA, people locally here in Santa Rosa, saying, you need to take that video down. If my daughter sees that, she's going to be heartbroken. So again, this is like an effort to cover up the truth of what's happening. You know, here's this person that discards this animal just because they don't fit into their expectations, because they're not showable, because they're not breedable, and they're just discarding them. And when faced with the truth, they don't want to have that truth exposed, even if it's done anonymously. And that I find to be a really big problem. But anyway, Poppy is one of our best ambassadors. She's one of our therapy goats. We take her to children's centers, adult centers for children and adults with disability. We go to kid camps with her. She's super friendly. She has her own Instagram channel called Poppy the Pixie Goat. And you can see here, she's at Sonoma County Veg Fest, which Hope puts on every year and Compassionate Living puts on, which we always go. We love being there. And here you see Poppy's making a sweet little friend. So this is Meep. So this is a funny story. And, you know, we don't breed here at Goatlandia. Obviously, we rescue, but we did have a chicken hide in the bushes for a number of weeks and hatched an egg. So we were outside working one day and we looked behind us and there's this hen walking down the driveway proudly, and behind her is this little baby chick. And we're like, oh, hi. This is a very big surprise because normally we pull all the eggs every day, and this one got away from us. So he was born here and his name is Meep. He was named by one of our volunteers for his cute little sounds. And what's fascinating about him too is, again, Meep, if he would have been born in an agricultural setting at an egg farm, whether it's a small family farm or a large egg production organization, he would have been killed, whether suffocated, ground up alive. This is what happens to baby boy chickens. But he was really cool. He was super friendly. He'd follow the volunteers around. He'd come in the volunteer room where we were getting food ready, he'd sit on our shoulder, and he's still here today. So another example of what kindness and compassion can do. It really makes the animals happy and makes us happy. And that's the lifestyle that we want for all animals. We don't have only goats, obviously, and chickens. We have pigs as well. And this is Dippy, one of our pigs. And this is a really great story. We had a gentleman approach us. He called the sanctuary. And this was before we were 501c3. So this must have been 5 years ago. And said, I have 4 pigs. I need to find them a home. I bought them as piglets and I was going to raise them and eat them, but I just can't do it. And I found that to be really beautiful. And so we agreed to take them in, and we actually took in 4 of them. They're all sisters. They're an heirloom breed called Kune that are generally raised for meat. And they're still here on the sanctuary today. And then in the background, you can see Sheldon. Gosh, I've had Sheldon for about 7 years. He's a mini pig, and as you can see, mini pigs don't really stay mini. But these 4 sisters, Dippy, Brianna, Portia, and Gigi, they have become really good friends to Sheldon. So again, beautiful, beautiful experience to see someone intending to kill an animal and having an open heart and saying, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to rescue this animal. Or I'm going to save this animal. So great story. Great pigs. They have really nice personalities. So that's some of the stories of the animals that we have here. And I'd love to go into some Q&A if people have some questions. I'm going to open up the chat here and see if anyone has questions, please put them in the chat section.
Yeah, there hasn't really been any questions yet. We've been having some comments and stuff. So if somebody has questions now for Deb, please type them in.
Yeah, I see one here. Anissa, she said she was late coming in. I missed what sanctuary Deborah runs. Can someone let me know? Yeah, absolutely. So you can probably see on the screen right now our webpage and our logo. So we are I'm going to close this. We are a small sanctuary in Santa Rosa called Goatlandia. So that's what we do. And we do things. We do catering and education, humane education. So let's see what else. Yeah, that's a good point too. That's Donna, you made a really good comment here that used to think goat milk was good. And that's another thing that we hear a lot, surprisingly. We hear a lot of people say, oh yeah, I've heard goat milk is better than cow's milk. And for some reason they think it's more humane. And that's absolutely completely false. Goat milk has a smaller protein molecule, so it can be tolerable for people that can't tolerate cow's milk. But unfortunately, the process behind it is exactly the same. All the baby boys are killed. The females are subjected to repeated breeding. So yeah, there is no difference between what type of animal is in the dairy. It's still incredibly inhumane. Let's see. Let's see if anybody else
There
has
was
any
one that
questions.
passed right by asking about adopting, if you adopt out and how they could possibly help you relieve your population by adopting. Do you do that?
Absolutely. So we do adopt out. We've adopted over 150 animals in the 3 years that we've been doing this. We do adopt animals out. There's a very stringent adoption process that we follow, and that consists of a phone interview with people. It consists of us doing a site visit. So we go out to the people's homes, again, to meet them in person, trying to understand motivation, look at their property, make sure they're set up correctly, make sure they have everything in place to protect the animals, and generally just get to know them a little bit better. You know, we are very, very concerned that our animals are in homes that are loving and respectful and kind. So we have an adoption agreement that all of our adoptees sign, and it says very clearly these animals are not to be bred. They have to have all the veterinary care they require. And it also states that if anytime anyone can't care for an animal, they are obligated to bring them back to us. No questions asked for any reason. And we also do annual site visits to visit the animals that we have adopted out and make sure that they are being cared for and they're happy. And normally we only adopt to an hour radius from Santa Rosa, so that we do have the opportunity to go visit those animals and make sure. So we adopt out, and I've said no a number of times too, because either I didn't have a good feeling about the people that wanted to adopt, or what can also happen is the husband wants, weed eaters that are going to take all the brush off his steep hill, but the wife wants cute goats that her grandkids can pet, which are clearly two different motivations. So I've said no a number of times, and I reserve that right. And these animals' lives are in my hands as a director of the sanctuary. I really want to be sure that they're in good homes. So, but we love adopting out, because the more we adopt out and place in great homes, the more we can save. So, yeah.
Okay, so a couple more questions. One was, how many animals do you have at the sanctuary? And another is, how do you decide which animals can go to events? It might be stressful for some. Are you
Yeah.
who goes to events?
Yeah, absolutely. So a number of animals right now we have about, and we're a small sanctuary. We're only 2 acres, and the sanctuary is at my house. So it's pretty cozy. We have about 50 chickens. We have 6 pigs. We have right now 23 goats. We have a turkey that we just rescued this past November, who we're all having so much fun with. It's our first turkey, and gosh, he's got a personality that's even as big as him. We're having so much fun with him. And 3 ducks and 4 sheep. So that's how many animals we have now. But that number is always in flux as we adopt animals out, as we take more animals in. Right now we're taking more animals. We're kind of full. But that's how many we have right now. Yeah, and that's a good point about taking animals to events. We've been to so many different events, and I couldn't all here because we don't have the time, but there definitely are certain animals that are more, shall we say, they're a little bit more relaxed around a lot of people. They're a little bit more used to going out. There's some of the goats that we have love people, and we've taken Leo to the Academy of Sciences in San Francisco for a goat nightlife, and he must have met, I don't know, 500 people, and he was totally friendly and totally easygoing, and he was actually rescued from a petting zoo. So I think having that experience of meeting so many strangers as a young kid probably trained him really well for lots of human interaction. But it's really too, we see, especially in County Veg Fest, we bring some of the baby goats, and it's really funny. Just like I don't have human kids, but you know, I'm an aunt and I've seen a couple in my life. It's really tire out. They reach a point where they're like, I'm done, I'm overstimulated, I want to go home. And baby goats do that same thing. We've taken them to events and there's a time period where they just look at you like, okay, that's too much, I want to go home, at which time we take them home. So, and we also, when we take animals to events, we not only do we decide, you know, which animals best to take based on their personality, but we always have volunteers that are just with those animals the whole time. And if any time we feel like, okay, they're tired, they want to go home, then that volunteer brings them back right away. But it's really fun. We actually have an event going on right now at a local business where we brought some goats and we're out there making friends. So yeah, let's see what else. Kathleen, thank you for the nice comment. Keep up the great work. Let's see. Oh, this is a good question. Veda Strom asked, in Dominion, I believe they said that the largest purchaser of goat milk and goat cheese is the US. Do you know more about that? I don't. Frankly, my experience, my animal rescue experience is primarily with small humane dairies. You know, most of the animals we rescue are from very small operations that are very popular, again, because of this misconception that smaller operations are more humane. So I don't have a lot of experience, and Goatlandia doesn't have a lot of experience with larger producers and larger agricultural operations. So maybe that's something that someone else could speak to. But most of our experience is with these small craft hobby, you know, humane farms. So, which we're happy to be in that, because again, by working with them, we are really exposing this humane hoax. Let's see. How do you decide which residents? We answered that one. Oh, how do you structure the events like goat yoga or hiking with goats that to ensure that they do not end up objectifying animals? That's a really good question. And this is something that I've explored quite a bit and I think about all the time. I actually did a farm sanctuary in Watkins Glen that was a 3-day course for people that want to have sanctuaries. And this is a really important topic that they talked about. You know, we are here to educate the public. We are here to change the world. We're here to further animal rights. And there are other organizations that, you know, like to make money out of dressing up little goats and taking pictures, or like you said, Hannah, objectifying animals. So my answer to that, the way that we do that, we do all kinds of events, whether it's goat yoga or hikes with people. But the way that we protect against that is, number one, every single event that we go to, we educate the people on where these animals are from, what their background is, why they're alive today instead of being killed. We tell every single person that we encounter on our events the stories of animal agriculture. And, you know, we have had a couple people think that, okay, we're just going to come and pet the animals. And you can tell they get a little like defensive when they start hearing things that maybe they don't want to hear. But quite frankly, I rather alienate a couple of people and educate the other 5,000 and not do that. So, you know, our commitment first and foremost is to the animals and their well-being, but second after that is to educate the public and to change people's behavior and to save animal lives. So we never train our animals to perform. And if any time we feel like we're doing something the animals don't enjoy, we just don't do it, you know? So, yeah, it's interesting. People come to different events for different reasons, but we feel like having events like goat hikes, which we do through Airbnb experiences, the beautiful thing is that we're reaching this group, this audience of people. When we do these experiences, most of them aren't vegetarian or vegan, and they're being attracted to the experience or the event because it sounds fun to them. So I think in essence, by hosting this variety of events, we're throwing the net that much wider, and we're attracting people that haven't even considered eating vegan, and we're teaching them. And not only that, but we're feeding them. We're feeding them really good vegan food, and we're changing people's minds every day. One of the things that we used to do a lot is Airbnb experience dinners. Have people to the sanctuary and they get a tour, very small groups, like 6 to 12. They'd get a tour and meet the animals. And then they'd come inside and we'd cook a 4-course dinner for them, all vegan, of course, all organic. And 90% of the people that came to these events weren't even vegetarian. And they would say things like, wow, I had no idea vegan food was this good. This is delicious. You know, so it's great. There's this fantastic opportunity to introduce people not only to animals, but to really good plant-based food. And that's really valuable for us as well. So let's see.
So
Someone
there's
here. Well,
a
my
couple
question
of questions that have passed on by. One was asking if you adopt to Montana, and I would just say to that person, probably get in touch with Deb after and try to connect.
Yeah,
maybe that could be worked out. And the other one that just came in on the Q&A that's interesting is about the goats that are used for trimming landscape and eating. Now that's a new trend. You see now goats on the side of the highway that are, being used instead of mowers. Do you know anything about that? Where are those goats coming from? What's up with that?
Yeah, great question. And it's really interesting because before I decided to become a nonprofit, that was one of the business models that I was considering doing, because I'd been rescuing all these boy goats from dairy. And it's this fantastic way to rescue them and create this big team of goats and I don't have a lot of experience inside one of those operations because I've never worked for them. But I have a relationship with a person that owns one who I've kind of like asked him about his goats. Does he want to like give up any of his goats once they're too old to graze? And he seems to be a nice guy. But again, I've never been able to see fully inside these organizations. But I will say, in terms of the goats thrive on a varied diet. If I had enough space to let my goats browse and graze and eat not only the orchard grass hay that we give them, but bushes and trees and fruits and all the things that they like to eat, they would be goats just love having a lot of different foods to eat. They're browsers by nature. And I think the experience of them going into new areas and eating everything that's there is actually, I really truly believe it's fun for them. And I know for a fact it's healthy for them. They thrive on a varied diet, just like we do. The question that we all have, I think, in these operations are, how are the goats being treated? Are they ensuring that the goats are safe when they're out there? Do they have adequate fencing? Do they have a shepherd on site 24/7? And what do they do when the goats get sick? Do they put them down, or do they give them proper veterinary care? I do think that there's a way to do a grazing operation in a humane way, but of course it's more costly, and trying to find someone committed to that level of care and humanity, I would like to think they're out there, but I can't speak and say for sure I know this organization does it well. But in terms of the goats, I know my goats would love it if they were trained to do that and they had access to the different variety in different areas and different plants. But yeah, I really don't know if there are any organizations that are doing it right or wrong. I'm slightly encouraged by it, because I think having a natural solution to fire abatement is a great thing. The goats get fed. Hopefully some of those goats on that team are rescued in some way, and the goats are fertilizing. It's kind of a win-win if you think about it. It's carbon free. No one's starting up in a machine or a tractor or saws to cut down brush. I mean, it's kind of a natural way to address fire abatement. But again, there are definitely concerns about how these organizations are treating their animals.
Yeah, and one concern that just came up is that they could possibly ingest poisonous plants. Mm-hmm. And one that I've heard too is that they might not get all the nutrition that they need. Like it might just be grass, and they're not getting a variety.
Yeah, and I will say nutrition, in the interest of full disclosure, nutrition is a challenge that even we face. We do blood work every 6 months on our herd to make sure that they're getting everything they need, and everything's been fine. We did blood work a couple weeks ago, and they're deficient in some things. So even in our situation, and we spare no expense for the health of our animals, and we do the best that we think we can. I talk to vets all the time. Nutrition is one of the biggest topics that keep coming up. And it's still something that we deal with and challenge. We're always adjusting our diet and our regimen, the amounts that we're feeding them, the mineral that we're giving them. So it's definitely a concern, but it's something that even the most caring goat guardians, I'll say, I don't want to say owners because they own their own lives, but it's something that we all deal with. And it's something that we pay a lot of close attention to. But I really firmly believe that a variety of foods and a varied diet is a great way to to ensure that they are getting lots of things. But yeah, but the toxic plants is a really good point. And that's another thing I do when I go to do site visits pre-adoption, is I look at what they have on the property. There's a great list of poisonous and non-poisonous plants on a website called Fiasco Farm that I use. It's the most comprehensive list that I've ever found. And if there is anything that I'm not aware of, I show it to someone that understands plants. I say, hey, what is this? Identify it. That's a really big concern, because you would think that most animals have a sense about what's poisonous, but that's not always the case. And I have heard stories from people calling us looking to adopt. I had 3 goats and this happened a couple weeks ago. It was heartbreaking. This guy called and said, I had 3 goats and I trimmed a bunch of my landscaping in my yard and I fed it to my goats and 2 of them died. So, it's definitely a concern. And it's another opportunity for education as we adopt out to people to say, hey, you need to know what's in your pasture, what's in your yard or in your house, and be careful you're not exposing your animals to that. So, let's see. Oh, this is a good question. Somebody said, well, my question was, how do you usually get to dairy industry and rescue goats or any other animal? As I've understood, you get a call from them, but what about those cruel industries that just don't care about animals? How do they allow you to enter? Again, most of the time when we hear about rescue opportunities, it's very interesting. Most of the time it's coming from an employee in that dairy organization or in that meat or FFA, who somebody inside the organization that feels badly about what they're seeing. And again, that's, just the fact that that's happening to me is very encouraging. That shows that there's people in the industry, they get in the industry and they feel, wow, this is really wrong. This hurts my heart. Like, what can I do about it? But oftentimes rescue opportunities come to us from animal care and control, not only in our county here in Sonoma County, but all over California. We've rescued animals all the way up to Lake County and all the way down to San Diego. Sometimes it comes from vets that we have great relationships with. My board of director, who was a vet at UC Davis, she's since moved to Canada, but she was a great ally and a great resource and an opportunity for rescue. So they come to us in all different ways. I've never been prohibited from entering an operation that has reached out to us, but I've certainly had previous relationships with people that had goat milk that we were trying to get so that we could bottle feed our rescued babies, stop selling us milk. So now when we rescue baby goats, we're actually buying goat milk off the shelf in a supermarket, because people want to know that we're an animal rescue nonprofit organization and a vegan organization, even though we're not judgmental. They just don't want to sell to us. So yeah, there's definitely that example of resistance there. Let's see.
So there's a request to show that Toxic's website again, or the potential toxic plants website again, and also, is it just goats or is it for all animals? All companion.
Yeah, it's just goats, and the name of the website is Fiasco Farm. Let me just pull it up on my phone. And they are, full disclosure, again, they are I don't know if they're raising for dairy or what they're doing, but the reason why I use that list is because it's the absolute comprehensive that I've seen, and their entire website is full of really valuable information. When we have an animal who's sick, we absolutely call the vet. We use vets more than I think anybody else that I know in the rescue organizations. There are a lot of people that kind of like to do things themselves to save money. I don't want to take a chance with the animal's life or with the animal's health. So I have taken some veterinary classes. I love learning about veterinary medicine, and I try and absorb as much as I can, but I never ever try and diagnose or treat anything myself. We always call the vet. But yeah, the reason why I use this list is because, do I like the fact that they're raising goats for some purpose that I don't agree with? No, but it's a solid piece of knowledge, and I use that list. So it's Fiasco Farm, and it's a very comprehensive list, and I actually have it taped inside my pantry door so I can refer to it again. And that being said too, a lot of people will Google information, my goat's sick and this is what's happening. What do? I don't trust anything on the internet at all, except for things like this list that I've researched and discussed with vets. Everybody has an opinion. I've read things about goat behavior and goat care on the internet that my vet has told me that's absolutely not true at all. Don't do that. So again, we always refer to our vets, and That's another interesting topic. Finding a vet, large animal vet who actually respects what we do and appreciates our position and our
Hey,
approach.
Deb.
Yeah.
Just real quick, just so you know, you only have 3 minutes till we're
Okay.
ending this session.
Okay.
And we have gotten the website posted in the chat, so that's taken care
Great.
of. Go ahead and wrap up. Three more minutes.
So finding a vet that that respects what we do and doesn't make fun of us or sneer at us is kind of tough. We finally found a good one, but it was a process, and we have a fantastic relationship with him and his other vets there at the practice. So yeah. Anybody else have any questions before we wrap up? Yeah, I just want to say again, thank you to everyone that's here. What we do here is hard work. Living with animals and rescuing animals is a 24-hour job, and I think I'm Goatlandia's hardest working unpaid volunteer besides my husband. But it is just a joy to be able to what we do. These animals have fulfilled my life in a way that nothing else ever has, and sharing them with others that care is one of the most rewarding things I could possibly do with my life. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all the participants and all the other speakers for everything that you're doing to promote animal rights and animal welfare. And thank you again, Hope, for having me here.
Thanks, Deborah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That was an amazing presentation. Yeah, I respect all the work you do out